Steven Universe and all associated images are property of Cartoon Network, Rebecca Sugar, and any and all other respective owners. I don't know them all. All footage in this video has been used for the purpose of critique parody under fair use. Please support the official release. One object from Steven Universe that I don't see people talking about enough is the geode. Yeah, that thing from the episode where Greg pretended to have a busted leg so he could hang with his son, that thing. You may not have thought about it since that episode because it was placed so firmly in the background of that narrative. And yet it is said that if the geode breaks open, it will release a storm that will cover the earth and, according to the crystal gems, vaporize everyone's bodies. And the geode wasn't just some one-off, overpowered thing like the Glass of Time or the duplication wand from Onion Trade. It is shown and referenced again in Warp Tour, the first episode where we learn anything about the workings of the warps. Keep that in mind because it will be important later. It's clear to me that the geode is an important object, one that is much more important than its part in the story so far would lead you to believe. Unlike the wand and the Glass of Time, which were only important in so much that they furthered the plot of their individual episodes, the geode, I think, is important to the overall plot of the series. So that begs the question, how is it important? And what exactly is it? Well, first let's talk about that line that said that the geode contains a storm that if released would vaporize everyone's bodies. I just want to get this part out of the way because that's not really what was said, even if it is what most people remember. First of all, Pearl specifically refers to the storm within the geode as being a synthetic storm, meaning that it was created by someone, for some purpose. She also says our bodies will be vaporized, but the only people present at the time are herself, the other crystal gems, and Steven. She could mean our, as in everyone, gem and human alike, but she could also mean our as in herself and the other gems, and I think it's the latter in this case. I think that some electromagnetic property of the synthetic storm makes it impossible for gems to form their hard light bodies. I'm not saying that it wouldn't harm humans at all, but from the way the dialogue is handled, it really does feel like it's more immediately harmful to gems. All of that said, we now know why the geode was made. It was made specifically to contain this synthetic storm. But the storm itself was also made by someone, almost definitely the gems themselves. So what was the storm made for? There are a lot of possibilities, but the one that I find the most likely is that the storm was made to power something. Remember how I said to keep in mind that the geode was shown for the second and final time in an episode where we learned more about the warps? Well, what did we learn in that episode about the warps? We learned that the warps are only local to Earth, that they are connected to each other all the time, and that warps from other planets must come through galaxy warps. We also saw, for the first time, what it looks like outside of the warp stream. This is where I think that the reason for showing the geode in this episode came in, so that we would notice the similarity between the pattern on the geode and the pattern visible in the far distance when looking at the space outside of the warp stream. They aren't perfectly identical, but they're definitely similar. And what else do we see outside of the warp stream in the far, far distance? Clouds, as if the warps share the warp space with an enormous storm. I think that the warps on Earth all pass through the geode, drawing the power needed to sustain them from the storm which constantly spins around the far outer edge of the geode's interior. This also means that other gem-controlled planets probably each have their own geode, and that there's also likely a much larger geode somewhere in space which contains all of the galaxy warps. Maybe it's the lightning buildup in the storm clouds, or even just the motion of the storm itself which provides the power for the warps. After all, like all gem tech, the power from the warp streams has to come from somewhere. It would be easy for all of the warps to pass through the geode if the interior, like Lion's Mane or Rose's room, is much bigger than the outside. And if the area outside of the warp stream is the area inside the geode, it explains why there is air. If the storm really is bordering the inner edge of the geode, it even explains why the air near the center, near the warp streams, is so cold. There is an extreme difference in pressure in that central area compared to the far distant area, which causes the air in the center to super chill. It all fits so well that I can't see any other possibility for what the geode is being the correct one. It even explains why the geode has literally only been seen in episodes which had something to do with the warp. Remember, it was in the episode Houseguest when the geode was first introduced that we learned about the warp whistle. The crew has been trying to build a connection between the warps and the geodes in our minds since the very beginning. But what do you think of this theory, guys? Did it blow you away, or do you see a different answer written somewhere in the clouds? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later. Do you have a theory idea or merely a musing about the show that you'd like me to discuss? You can head on over to my Facebook page and send me a message detailing your ideas, and if I find them interesting enough, I'll be sure to respond. Or you could head on over to my Tumblr page and send me an ask. If it's not something that I've covered before, I'll be sure to answer. If you are on Facebook or Tumblr, I also recommend that you like and or follow me there as well to keep up to date on all of my content as well as any supplementary content that I might post on either of those sites. And if you know anyone on Facebook or Tumblr who might find my content interesting, please share it with them. I'd really appreciate it.